For most reality shows, the contestants who last the longest are the ones who have more than their share of smarts. Sometimes they're the ones who are the best at puzzle solving, and other times they're the ones who know how to manipulate others and take advantage of an alliance. Total Drama is really no exception to this. And when it comes to our classic characters, which are total smarties and who should have stayed in high school instead of going on to a reality show? I'm Kifinosi with Wicked Binge, and this is Total Drama Gen 1. Dumb to brilliant. Now, there are different kinds of intelligence out there. A person could still qualify as intelligent so long as they excel in at least one field, such as book smarts, street smarts, strategic skills, the ability to think on their feet, or recognize a trap, and so on. Naturally, we're going to be factoring in all of these different fields for our ranking. First off, we have the characters who are not the brightest. Earning our gold medal of stupidity is, unfortunately, Ezekiel. When it comes to the first Total Drama cast, this guy's pretty infamous. And not just because of his whole going feral thing. Simply put, Ezekiel can be pretty slow at times. He can be both unobservant and unthinking, and he often makes mistakes. The only reason why he was eliminated first in Season 1 was because he kept putting his foot in his mouth with his sexist comments, not apologizing afterwards.
Well, I just don't get why we lost, eh?
He also screwed up the first World Tour challenge he did, earning another quick elimination. While we will commend Ezekiel's survival skills, we also can't really say that it was a smart decision for him to continue staying on the plane, despite what it was doing to him mentally. Overall, Ezekiel is just pretty dumb, and unlike a couple of the others in this tier, he doesn't really have a moment where he gets to show off some braininess, nor any personal skills, so he lands at the very bottom. For our silver medal of stupidity, we're giving it to the BFF duo, Katie and Sadie. Often considered to be filler characters, what these two lack in personality, they also lack in brainpower. They never really contributed much during the competition, and their first major role was getting lost in the woods and losing the challenge for their team.
Because thanks to you, we just lost the challenge!
And it wasn't any sort of special skill that got them unlost, they just happened to come across their team the morning after the challenge. It was also incredibly easy for Justin to trick them during the special that took place between seasons 1 and 2. Perhaps their most frustrating dumb moment, though, was when they accidentally got Lashana voted off. It may have been partially an accident, but come on. When someone's asking you who you want to see get voted off, maybe don't say the name of the person you actually like? You would think that would be obvious, but for these two BFFs, apparently not. Getting our bronze medal of stupidity, we have Lindsay. Possibly one of the more disappointing stories of this ranking, as Lindsay certainly had the potential to be more than just the dumb blonde stereotype. While it may have been fairly easy for Heather to manipulate her, Lindsay still had a chance to show off her mechanical skills during the bike building challenge. Then, in Season 2, she actually showed some decent talents as a detective during the murder mystery challenge. She's also very knowledgeable about fashion, which can also come in handy at times. However, while Lindsay was never as brain dead as some people might have thought, she did come pretty close when it came time for her to compete in All Stars, where she struggled to figure out how to push a baby carriage.
Okay, how do you push again?
But even if we ignore this piece of bad characterization, Lindsay is still dumb enough to get a spot in our bottom 3. Following her is her wannabe boyfriend, Tyler. Much like Lindsay, Tyler can be pretty dense at times. One example of this is in the episode Broadway, Baby, when Noah tells him to make a mental note of something, and Tyler replies that he doesn't have a pen.
I don't have a pen.
For other characters like Alejandro, manipulating Tyler is all too easy. It's also common for Tyler to overestimate a challenge, being too caught up in believing his own hype in regards to his not-so-stellar athletic skills. When he's not trying to be the jock of his team, he's more a follower than anything else, not really having any moments where he comes up with a good idea or acts as a good leader for his teammates. For these reasons, we had to stick him in this tier. Next up, we have the original Season 1 winner, Owen. While Owen may have quite a few of his own strengths and skills, intelligent often just isn't one of them. Because he's often optimistic and doesn't really think too much before jumping right into most challenges, he'll sometimes have a harder time than he would have if he had just thought things through. He can make both dumb and foolish decisions when he lets his appetite control his head, like when he ate the ribs during Season 1's cooking challenge, and when it came time to be a mole in Total Drama action.
Chris wants me to spy on the two teams and pick one to sabotage.
He doesn't have many survival skills, and he wasn't really the best at finding ways to stir up drama. Perhaps his dumbest decision, though, was giving up his $100,000 in exchange for a chance at $1 million. Sure, Chris probably would have made him give it up anyway, but still, he could have at least tried to be a bit more thoughtful, but like we said, Owen isn't really the type of guy to plan ahead. Sticking with the nicer campers, we have Bridget next. For the most part, Bridget actually didn't have too many dumb moments. Her biggest flaw was more that she was just really clumsy, although we can't say that eating before trying to do a handstand for several minutes really helped matters. Both she and Jeff also made the dumb decision to stay focused on each other instead of the game when they briefly competed in Season 2. And when she got another chance in Season 3, Bridget was the first to be manipulated by Alejandro, leading to her getting her tongue frozen onto a flagpole. It could be argued that given how long she lasted in the game during the first season, and with how much manipulation she saw from characters like Heather, she really should have known better instead of being so trusting. Finishing off this tier, we have the aggro Eva. While she may have had the strength and power to go far in the game, Eva just didn't have the self-control needed to keep her anger issues at bay.
One of you must have stolen it!
Now, anger problems and intelligence aren't necessarily connected, but after she got eliminated for taking out her rage on her team, one would think that Eva would at least try to control her anger when she got a second chance at the $100,000. But no, she decided to be just as aggressive as ever, and was even surprised when she got voted off again. We haven't seen much of Eva since, outside of her briefly getting charmed by Justin during the Season 1 special, and frankly, it's hard to say how much better she would do if given a third chance. Our next section on this list is what we like to call average folks, the characters who land somewhere in between dumb and brilliant. Starting off this tier is friendly party dude Jeff. It may be easy to mistake Jeff's overall chillness with dumbness, but we're willing to give Jeff just a bit more credit than that. Sure, he's not always the best at romance and can sometimes be a bit oblivious as well as forgetful, like when he forgot to put bolts on his bike during the bike building challenge. When it comes to things like having fun or gaining fame, it can be easy for Jeff to get distracted. We do, however, get to see him briefly get the upper hand over Blanley in Season 3, and then in the Redonkulous race, Jeff and his best friend Brody have enough skill to make it to the finale.
Doing great, bro.
While we'll admit that Jeff has had a couple of pretty dumb moments on the show, we still feel that he's just smart enough to be on the edge of average. Following him, we have the adorkable Cody. Being your typical geek trope, it's only natural that Cody would be fairly smart as well. The first showing of this was in the Dodge Brawl episode, using aerodynamics and static electricity to hit his targets. He's shown to have carpentry skills in Season 3 when he builds a model of Gwen's face out of wood without any instructions, although, given that he was supposed to build a boat, we're not sure if we can give him too many points for that one. We also see him doing a lot to help Heather during the Season 3 finale, taking out Alejandro's helpers and distracting Alejandro by calling him Al, after remembering how much he hates that. However, Cody can be pretty dumb at times too.
Gosh, Al! Owen must have called Al like 1,000 times, huh?
He accidentally lured a bear to him when he didn't notice that he was dropping potato chips behind himself, and despite being considered a techie, he didn't have the skills to defuse his trash bomb during the Face Your Fears challenge. If we'd gotten more of Cody's smart side, he likely would have been placed higher, but as it stands, we feel that average is the right tier for him. Next up is the fan favorite snarker, Noah. Although his archetype is the schemer, Noah doesn't really do much scheming. He's often more sarcastic than anything else, with his arrogance being what got him eliminated in Season 1.
You just voted out the only one with any brains on this team.
With how smart he is, he really should have seen that elimination coming after he refused to participate in the challenge. Thankfully, Noah does get to show off a bit more of his smarts in Season 3. Occasionally, he's seen having a good idea, like when he makes his team's sled go fast enough to win the challenge, or when he figures out where the Ripper is going to be. And he's also one of the few contestants during that season who doesn't get manipulated by Alejandro, and is instead able to see just how slippery he is. Unfortunately, the events of Redonkulous race bring his intelligence down a little, due to him being blinded by love through his crush on Emma. With all these ups and downs in regards to his intelligence, he manages to land right in the middle of average. Managing to place decently high is the always handsome Justin. While the stereotype often portrays male models as not having much brainpower, we can't say that Justin is that dumb. Prior to Courtney's return, Justin was briefly designated as the antagonist in Total Drama Action, being the one to try and create alliances or manipulate others.
A near-death experience can change a man, Duncan.
To be fair, Justin does do this successfully a couple of times. Like when he gets Trent eliminated, he definitely knows how to use his charm and good looks to his advantage as well, to the point where you could say that he over-relies on it. In fact, when he gets that advantage taken away from him through multiple injuries, Justin doesn't really have much to him. He also trusted Courtney after falling for her, which, yeah, he definitely should have known better, and should have expected that she would do anything for the million. Like we said, he's not brainless, but it's really no wonder he got outclassed by another handsome and charming manipulator, that being Alejandro. Another completely average guy in terms of intelligence is DJ. He may have one of the biggest hearts in the series, but not necessarily one of the biggest brains. We will give him this though. In his first season, at least, he was good with animals and knew how to tame his pet bunny.
This is my new pet. I'm calling them bunny.
He's also a fantastic chef, although it's hard to say whether the tastiness of his dishes comes from his actual skills or his secret ingredient. When it comes to the alliance he has with Chef, any underhanded techniques or strategies are Chef's doing, not DJ's. As for the third season, he's so focused on the destruction caused by his curse that he doesn't really get many moments to show off his skills nor his smarts. Quite the opposite, in fact. He's not dumb by any means, but it's hard to see what sort of smarts he does have when he so often gets the short end of the stick when it comes to the challenges and just luck in general. Up next, we have the guitar guy, Trent. Originally starting off as the laid-back musician, Trent quickly became misunderstood by the writers, often used for slapstick gags or, in the case of Season 2, quick and easy drama. Though, speaking of his skills on the guitar, knowing how to play an instrument takes a decent amount of intellect, so we'll give him credit for that. We also don't see Trent make too many dumb moments at first, but he just doesn't make a ton of smart moves either. As we said, he normally doesn't get the chance, usually getting knocked out or severely injured. At the very least, he was able to outwit his mime in the Face Your Fears challenge.
What's the matter, mime? Can't swim?
However, it's when his romantic subplots come into play where his intelligence really takes a dive. Despite just being kissed by her, Trent believes Heather when she tells him that Gwen hates him. Then, in Season 2, he starts throwing challenges and relying on luck instead of his own skills. In both cases, there's a severe lack of communication, and if there had been any sort of communication efforts, it likely would have solved both conflicts rather easily. Outside of these instances, though, he still seems like a fairly smart guy, hence why we felt he deserved to be in average. After him is one of Total Drama Action's runners-up, Beth. While she may have once been naive and dependent on others, watching Beth grow into someone more independent and confident was totally one of the better character outcomes in this show. When looking at her strengths, we can't really say that Beth is a genius or anything like that, but she does still manage to have her moments. She realizes when she's being manipulated by Heather long before Lindsay does in Season 1, and she's able to recall specific facts about her fellow contestants in the Season 2 finale. Speaking of which, her being part of the final two in that season shows that she does have the skills to make it far in the game.
Duncan! Beth! The final two!
Really, the biggest knock against her is when she accidentally brought bad luck onto her team with her tiki totem, and even then, it was more a case of circumstances and Chris not giving her all the information, instead of Beth just being dumb or foolish. We will say, however, that Beth getting manipulated again in Season 2, this time by Justin, was just a bit disappointing, even if it was only for a few episodes. At least she sees through Courtney's attempts, showing that she did, in fact, learn from her experiences. Next up, we have the infamous CIT, Courtney. While she may often want to be a leader, Courtney doesn't exactly have the people skills needed to pull that off. This may be more due to her selfishness, but even so, the smart thing to do would have been to try and not be so self-centered. Outside of this, Courtney does have some other decent skills. Given that she was essentially able to sue her way back onto the show, we feel that she has a pretty good grasp on the legal system.
I'm in the middle of filing a lawsuit for wrongful termination of competition.
Like Trent, she also knows how to play an instrument, that being the violin, which definitely takes skill. However, when it comes to manipulation attempts, they can be pretty hit or miss. In fact, during Season 3, she was the one who ended up getting manipulated in the end. When she's angry or frustrated, it's even harder for her to think ahead. This was probably best seen in All Stars, where she essentially sabotaged herself prior to the last challenge she competed in. And all Mal had to do was just put the final nail in. While still being smarter than many other average characters, Courtney just doesn't quite reach the threshold of being smarter than that. Finishing off the average and falling just below our next tier is the always bombastic Lashana. Certainly one of the standouts of Season 1, Lashana had a lot going for her, allowing her to get into the top 5. In terms of intelligence, we see how crafty she is during the hide-and-seek challenge, hiding under the water and being the only one to not be found by Chef. In Season 2, she's the last one standing in the episode One Flew Over the Cuckoos as well, and even manages to trick everyone else into giving her that challenge's prize.
I was just making sure they'd vote me the heck out of here for the night.
Her smarts do falter at times, though. It's revealed that she doesn't have many skills with building nor riding a bike in the episode That's Off the Chain, nor is she much of an animal hunter when she has to try and catch a frog. She also gets distracted by Alejandro's charm, and in regards to her whole lying plotline in Total Drama Action, we have to question the decision to not only reveal the truth, but also badmouth your fellow contestants when you know that everything you say is being recorded for TV. Definitely a pretty dumb move, I'd say, though it's not completely overshadowed by all her smarter moves, thankfully. Next up, we have the characters who are college-bound, the ones who are just barely below our super geniuses. Starting this tier off, we're ranking the goth girl Gwen. Easily the most level-headed character, before the whole love triangle thing. Gwen always seems to rise to the challenge despite her apathetic demeanor making her not seem like the type to do so. Her knowledge of horror movies definitely comes in handy during the episode Hook, Line, and Screamer, in which she ends up being the last one standing as well as the one to defeat the actual serial killer. Then in Wabanakwa Goes Wild, she's the first to successfully catch her assigned animal.
I win the dinner. Yes!
This shows that she can be strategic when she wants to be, and we also see her become more willing to work with others over time. While she doesn't get as many chances to shine in the later seasons, often being too caught up with romance drama, there's a reason why she managed to stand out so much and land a spot in the final two. Next up, we have Sierra, the superfan. As useless as some may consider factoids about the Total Drama series being, it's still impressive just how much Sierra knows and remembers about each cast member. She's essentially a Total Drama encyclopedia. She has numerous talents and skills that allow her to do well in several Season 3 challenges, and is even able to get one over on Heather by recognizing her manipulation tendencies and only feigning an interest in an alliance. She does, however, get manipulated by Alejandro a couple of times, but as we've made it clear by now, very few characters don't get manipulated by him. We also see Sierra show off some ingenuity when she turns her wheelchair into a hot air balloon and then a rocket, giving Cody the chance at staying in the finals.
I know you can. Now get up!
But once again, it's what we see in All Stars that stops her from going any higher. Without Cody by her side, Sierra becomes much less focused and, let's just face it, crazy. She doesn't get as dumbed down as other characters, but she doesn't get any true moments to shine either. Sorry, Sierra. Entering our top 5 brainiest campers, we have the secretly soft-hearted, delinquent Duncan. Being someone who's spent so much time in juvie over the years, he's become incredibly crafty and tactical, showing that he's much more than just a tough guy.
Okay, here's a strategy I picked up during my first visit to juvie.
He can be observant as well as strategic, as seen when he helped win the dodgeball game in Season 1, or when he was on the run in Season 3. He knows how to use explosives and is also an incredibly skilled mechanic, knowing how to build bikes and go-karts as well as fix engines without instructions, and without breaking a sweat. He's also one of the few characters other than Heather to try and create an alliance with some of the other campers in the first season. When he returns to the game in Season 3, Duncan is actually able to see through Alejandro's manipulation tactics, although he does still team up with him despite his suspicions. All Stars, for Duncan, is mostly about him proving that he's still a tough guy, which leads him to making some pretty dumb mistakes, like blowing up Chris's cottage, which then gets him arrested. But really, compared to other characters from that season who got severely downgraded or flanderized, Duncan actually got off kinda easy and is still considered a pretty crafty guy by most. From punk to nerd. Next up is Harold. This is a nerd who's not only a bit of a know-it-all, but also has plenty of mad skills, at least according to him. As annoying as his explanations may be at times, we can't deny that he does have plenty of book smarts, often being able to recall the scientific names for certain things like animals or phobias. He's also well-cultured, being the one to call out Chris's inaccuracies during the Kung Fu Movie Challenge in Total Drama Action.
So what the heck was all that training for if I can't even control my own arm?
He knows how to play the keyboard and has skills in both rapping and beatboxing, showing that he has a mind for music as well as poetry, if his love notes to Lashana are any indication. Possibly his smartest moment, however, was when he got Courtney eliminated and got away with it. That's pretty iconic, we're not gonna lie. Another great Harold moment is in the Season 2 episode Masters of Disasters, where he unlocks the hatch of the submarine during the second challenge using the skills that he'd picked up at the Picky Steve's lockpicking camp. Granted, he isn't able to replicate the success during the heist challenge, but it's still impressive. Though he could still be dumb on occasion and isn't immune to manipulation, Harold is about as close to traditionally book smart as we get with this cast. Getting our bronze medal of smarts is none other than Izzy. While Izzy may be mostly defined by her eccentric personality, there's no denying that the girl has plenty of smarts too. She's a skilled fighter who relies on both strength and strategy during her fights, and she knows how to hide herself from even huge security groups like the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
You'll never get me alive!
Similar to Duncan, she knows how to use explosives as well, and was even able to make her own homemade bomb out of tree sap in the episode Up the Creek. Her more strategic side pops up in the Season 1 finale, as she's the one who comes up with the brownie plan that gets Owen across the finish line. What's interesting about Izzy is that there may be a genius hidden away in that nutty mind of hers. When she gets a bad bump on the head in Season 3, she briefly becomes a super genius who's able to complete impressive calculations. Even if her brain Zilla mind is only temporary, it hints at her potential in terms of intelligence. Although, given all that she accomplished before, we still say that she's pretty smart even without that brain boost. What keeps her from the very top, however, is her tendency to make impulsive choices, like making out in the woods during a serial killer avoiding challenge, or doing things the exciting way instead of being more thoughtful. It was a bit of a toss-up, but for our silver medal of smarts, we're giving it to Alejandro. Believe us, it was incredibly close. Like Noah says, Alejandro is like Heather if she had better social skills. Often being called a snake or an eel, Alejandro is both slippery and a total manipulator, managing to get to nearly every single person in the Total Drama World Tour cast. Whether he was picking characters off or choosing who he would ally himself with, Alejandro always made incredibly smart moves when it came to the game, until the very end, where his confidence got the better of him and he ended up getting distracted and tricked by Heather's so-called love confession.
Something called victory! So long, sucker!
It's a dumb decision, but also poetic and satisfying in a way. Alejandro returns in All-Stars, and while he's able to get back at Heather by getting her eliminated fairly early on, he is soon overshadowed himself by the newest villain on the block, Mal. The fact that he outright told Mal of his suspicions was also a pretty dumb move, and it's these two notable mistakes that keep him from the very top. Finally, our gold medal of smarts is going to the original Queen Bee, Heather. Maybe our choice was a bit predictable, but in the end, no one could quite top Heather's killer manipulation skills. With how long she was able to stay in the game despite so many people hating her, and with how many eliminations she avoided, there's no denying that Heather is incredibly smart when it comes to playing people. Maybe she didn't always make smart decisions, like running into a freezer after her makeup kit, or being so rude to Beth that it destroyed their alliance.
Take it back.
But when it came to playing the game, she still always strived to make the best decisions possible for herself. She took a bit of a backseat in Season 2, but once World Tour came around, Heather had a chance to truly show off her lying and manipulation skills once again, all culminating in her outsmarting Alejandro once and for all. While there have been other characters who have better book smarts or street smarts, there's no one who knows how to play the game quite like Heather. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge our Dumb to Brilliant playlist where we figure out which characters have the most wits. But most importantly, stay wicked.